Hey everybody, welcome back. My name's Nathan, and I just thought I'd try to catch up a little bit and keep the ball rolling. I plan on making some changes here soon and doing some more traveling. So, let's see, where did I leave off? The darkness of drugs. All those things that I was exposed to, and I won't get into a lot of the other stuff. Just go right back to Marion State Prison and Tier 4. So after I got out of the Blue Room, I was placed on the chain gang. So that's the first part of your punishment. You're placed in confinement. I went to the hole for 90 days, and I read 1,000-page books from the library. That's all I did. And at the end of the 90 days, you go to the chain gang. In the state of Florida, the chain gang was outlawed. It's considered above and beyond the sentencing guidelines that unless the judge sentences you to hard labor, the state of Florida had no administrative authority to impose another sentence upon an inmate. I found all this out in the law library, but I wound up on the chain gang, and they just, in order to get around the Florida legislature, changed the name to the Restricted Labor Squad, which is under the gun with horses. Officers on horses. You're down in the ditches on the roadsides. All of the kind of toughest work, and alligators and snakes, all that stuff. And I did my solitary time, and then I did my chain gang time, and then I was put on the farm. All three of those combined were the punishment for refusing Tier 4 therapy. So it's a big deal. You really have to sacrifice and be ready to suffer to make that decision. And the retaliation from the officers is incredible. In the chain gang, one day my locks wouldn't lock, and I called the sergeant. I said, "Sarge, I need new locks," and he's like, "F you, Dell," and blah blah blah, and that was the general feeling about me. And I said, "Well, sir, that's a 5-year escape attempt. If I go out with an unlocked rig." And how that worked, they would bring us out, put us in a dog cage kennel. You'd sit down, you'd strip, you'd change into a uniform with no pockets. And then they would give you your waist chain, ankles, wrist, all the cuffs. It's all in one package. They throw it down at your feet, and you cuff yourself up. And when that's done, you place it out so that the officer can grab it and make sure that everything's locked and secure. So that day, all hell broke loose, after I complained. And I said, "Well, Sarge, I need a white shirt then, either a lieutenant or a captain, please." And of course, they all came when they requested a white shirt. And who's the problem child, and oh, it's F and Dell and blah, blah, blah. And white shirt grabbed me a new set, and he threw them right in my face when he walked by. He goes, "There, scumbag." And once again, how do you know God was there? Well, there was a sergeant named Sergeant Magwood, and he had a staff, a carved staff, and it had burnish in it, and he would preach the gospel all day long when we were out there working. And he was just an overseer. He didn't have a horse. He would just stand there, and at lunch, he would talk to you and give you an extra sandwich if you were working hard, or give you some extra water and extra piece of fruit if it was available. And so I liked Magwood. He was a fair guy. But that day I went out with the new chain locks, and we got to a job site, started working, and lunch came around. And the officer's like, Dell, go get my lunch, boy. And so I hobble over there, yes, boss, and I open the door of the vehicle. It's a pickup truck, a DOC truck, and we're in between the housing units and the dog kennel farm area on a vast field, and cutting with sling blades, so everybody's basically armed. But there was a shotgun laying on the seat, and I yelled out, gun, and I laid to the ground. I immediately flattened out because when I was walking over to the truck, the cops are drawing a bead on you, and Officer Magwood came to my defense. The gun was reported. It was an unsecured shotgun and a Department of Corrections vehicle. And when I filed those complaints, those officers were demoted. They were stripped of their high rank, taken off the restricted labor squad. All their tactical gear was taken, and their paycheck was lowered. They were brought back down to CO level. So now I had even more trouble. A lot of people hating me. So they transfer me out of there. I go to New River West, New River East, Lake Butler, real hellholes, and eventually wound up in Sumter, IEOS out of Sumter State Prison, which is a lifer's prison. It's also a work camp, a DOT camp for the road crews and chainsaw squads, chipper squads. But I originally got sent to the main unit, and the main unit is the lifer unit, and it also has the Scared Straight program. They have a 1-year military boot camp program for young offenders, and if they make it through that boot camp, their record is wiped clean, and they're given a new lease on life. But I came in on a van after all of the issues at Marion. DOC, in their infinite wisdom, sent me there early one morning, and I got there at sunrise on a van alone, and all the inmates thought I must have been a snitch. So I went in to get my clothes and speak to the intake people, but the inmates were giving out the clothes and the toiletries, and they wouldn't talk to me. And I was like, what's up, bro? What's your problem? Why won't you guys say anything, And they wouldn't even answer my question, wouldn't even look at me, turn away, and give me their backs, And so I got all my stuff. I went to my unit, got my cell, put my stuff in there, and I went out to the weight pile. And, I knew everybody was watching me. And I started working out. I went to the dip bar, and I could feel somebody staring at me, right? And I was really getting scared then. And I jumped down off the dip bar, and this guy, he was huge, bro. Huge arms as big as your skull. Big old buck, straight bull. Looking at me, bro. I said, man, what are you looking at, dude? What's up? Nothing, bro. And I said, well, it's bugging me. I don't feel comfortable. Well, no, it's something. And he was, well, we're just trying to figure out what's up and who you are. And I could tell you were a little different. And, and I said, well, yeah. So you want to just know, you want to know if I'm a snitch. And I told him the story and how I got there and gave him some information, people he could call, like Kevin Pape and some of my older buddies back there that actually ran the dark side of the prison. They really knew what happened. And so anyways, we became friendly. And he wrote poetry. He was an artist. He showed me his dormitory. We went over there, and he's living in an honor dorm, which I had never seen in the state of Florida. This was an old prison, and they still had an honor dorm. And, he had asked me about Jesus. And I said, bro, I don't want to talk about it. I didn't come here to talk about Jesus. I'm doing my time, and, I ain't trying to push nothing on you. No, it's cool, bro. But this guy did time in San Quentin and murdered a lot of people. He killed somebody in a bar fight. And when he first got to San Quentin State Prison, killed an inmate who was eyeballing him, a chicken hawk he was calling him out, to be his girl or whatever. And Morosco walked up and broke his neck just like that and killed him and let everybody know in San Quentin that he was there and he was not to be messed with. And I saw his files, I saw his jackets, and he did. Anytime he was challenged, he would take people out. And there were pictures. He showed me pictures of the top of death row. He went to death row. This guy was done, bro. He was going to be put to death. And they were up on the top of the cell, on top of death row, in a workout area, in a chain-link fenced dog kennel with 55-gallon drums of meth that they were cooking. And they were there with the officers, down on their knees, showing off their white supremacist tattoos and cooking meth, bro. They just ran that place. And he had the pictures. These were Polaroids. And I was just like, wow, dude, you're the real deal. He said, yeah. And I said, well, thanks for not, thanks for not hating me. And no, he says, I'm a believer. I really do believe in Jesus. And I said, well, tell me more. And so he found Jesus in a very strange way. It was in San Quentin. He was part Indian, and he used that in his paperwork to be allowed to go to the sweat lodges and the ceremonies and do peyote and mescaline and get high, basically. And a guy named Murf the Surf Murphy showed up. He's just called Jack Murphy. Him and some other cats from Miami Beach stole the Star of India diamond and some other amazing pieces from New York. Biggest haul ever. And he got paranoid and started killing off his partners and wound up with a death sentence himself in the state of Florida. Now, remember, Morosco is in California and San Quentin. And Murf the Surf Murphy wound up in The Rock, Rayford State Prison in the state of Florida. And a miracle happened. Murf the Surf Murphy was offered parole for life because he found Jesus. From Jules to Jesus, right? And they said, we'll give you lifetime parole, remove the death penalty, if you start a prison ministry. I think he died in 2020, Murf the Surf. And he agreed, and he started one of the biggest prison ministries on earth. He went to San Quentin to visit, and he met Richard Morosco, who's my friend in Florida State Prison. And Morosco had gotten an interstate compact with a Florida inmate to get to Florida so that he could visit his mother in her last days. And I'm like, well, how did all that happen? He says, well, I was high, and this cat shows up, and he's telling me all about Jesus, and it was this jewelry thief, that was got a death penalty, and he walking around free out in the free world, and only Jesus could make that happen, right? And I said, yeah, it sounds like it, and he says, yeah, and that's what happened, and so I accepted Jesus and came down to Florida, and then I'm in the honor dorm because I do the Scared Straight program, and I try to steer kids into a good path instead of a bad path, and try to bring people to Christ. And, isn't that amazing, right? Like, I met the guy, and I'm scared to death of him. I think this guy's going to kill me or rape me. And the whole time, it was a true warrior, convict, protecting me. In the very last prison before I was end of sentence, EOS'd out. Eventually, they moved me from the main unit to the chain gang squad over on the other side, and I went out on DOT squads for the last 6 months, but he wound up being one of my best friends other than Morosco, Kevin Pape and Bill King and all the guys from Marion, but he had asked me, would I accept Christ? And I never did, and yet now I look back and wow, and by proxy got that close to Murf the Surf Murphy by an inmate who knew the man and accepted Christ, right? And so, like I said, no matter where you go, no matter how bad you think things get or can get, or that you might not have a way out, just allow the Holy Spirit to do what he does, and he'll bring you through it. I remember other little hints and clues along the way that told me that, I thought Morosco was full of it. I didn't believe in that stuff. Now I look back and I'm just in awe of what God did for me. And I hadn't even asked for protection, but he had it there at every step of the way. He was waiting for me at Sumter, and I was able to integrate into the population no problem. Because everybody knew Morosco was my friend, and nobody messed with Richard Morosco or any of his friends. But he wasn't a violent man anymore. He was a peaceful warrior, a servant of Christ, a man that would wash your feet, a very humble, exceptional man that accepted his punishment and had no problem with doing the rest of his life in prison. Obviously, prison ministry is difficult, and I got to be kind of special to want to go into prisons and share the gospel. But nowadays, if you just post stuff online, these cats have phones now in their dorms, and you can reach people in prison as well. So, for all you young gangbangers and wannabe gangsters, I would suggest that you didn't take that rough road. It's a worthless waste of time. I wouldn't trade my experiences. I don't regret my path. But I regret the terrible things that I did and the people that I hurt. I regret all the destruction, losing my family, all the death. And I don't regret where it brought me to, and meeting Jesus and accepting him as my Savior became everything to me. So even if I have to crawl out into the woods and live under a tree, man, I've got that peace. I've got him with me, and the birds come and they chirp, and everything's just fine, man. So, but turn your back on the dark side, because he's on the rampage now, and any slip, could be catastrophic for folks like us. So I'll keep you in my prayers. Please say hello down in the comments, and hit the like button, subscribe, and enjoy the rest of your night. Thanks a lot. God bless you.